And welcome back, everybody, to Thursday Night Live here at AU Club. Glad to be back for another football season. Nathan King, joined here with Jason Caldwell. And it's a great week to be back because Auburn's SEC opener against Oklahoma is on the docket. And, Jason, we've been looking forward to this game for a long time and been looking forward to being back in AU Club. Appreciate them for sponsoring us once again. And, Auburn got that good test at Baylor to open the season, so that made things feel a little bit more real. But nothing feels like SEC football season, and Hugh Freeze said it this week, Auburn's going to get a real test to start this one.
Yeah, no, it's when you start talking about, opportunities, we've seen the opportunities for Auburn already when you started talking about, on the road to Baylor to start with, a couple of home games to kind of maybe work out the kinks a little bit. But now you go, hey, it's wide open at Oklahoma. This is a really talented football team, physical football team. And so, it's all you can ask for, I look at this game and, we'll delve into it and break down both sides, some of those things. But just when you start just kind of looking at it, the first thing is that, man, it's cool. It's cool to be sitting here talking about it, Auburn playing a regular season football game at Oklahoma, a game with a lot on the line, back in the top 25 matchup. These are the things we've pictured the last couple of years heading in this direction. And now for Auburn, can you go and, hey, can you take a step? And as Hugh Freeze said, we talked to him today after practice, Nathan, and I think it bears repeating that it's different. It's different now in college football than it was even 10 years ago, but absolutely different than it was 20, 25 years ago, where you're like you can lose a game. And you go, okay, man, look, Auburn's at Oklahoma, at Texas A&M, Georgia at home the next 3 games, then Missouri. If you go undefeated in this stretch, you go, okay, man, you're in the national championship conversation.
Right, yeah.
If you don't, it's okay. So can you go compete, steal a couple of these games on the road and see what happens? That's the goal, obviously, starting this weekend.
It almost felt a little bit more to me when Hugh Freeze was talking about that today, like a college basketball type conversation.
I agree.
Where it's like, hey, go try to do the best you can on the road, beat a few good teams on the road, but holding serve at home is going to be so important. And because of Auburn's home schedule, that's going to be really important as well. Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it, it's just we haven't had these kinds of games for Auburn of late. Honestly, when they've been on the road over the last few seasons playing good teams, it's just kind of felt like a major uphill battle. And look, Oklahoma's a 7-point favorite for a reason in this game, but to your point, this is the first ranked versus ranked game for Auburn since the 2021 season, since they went to Texas A&M and lost that game. And so it's Auburn's first opportunity to get their first top 15 road win since 2014.
Yes.
When Hugh Freeze was coaching at Ole Miss. I mean, it's just crazy to think about. But again, like you're saying, speaks to the opportunity they have on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, and like I said, there haven't been many of these opportunities when you look at Auburn the last few years. And so you start talking about, going on the road. Obviously, a storyline for this one is Jackson Arnold, but for me it's more program storyline going, look, man, it's an opportunity to go, okay, hey, you don't know that you're fully back, and because the question is, where do you back to? Because it's really since been, Auburn 2017, you made a run, 2019 you won 9 games, but you had 4 losses, and so can you get back to competing game in and game out? That's what we thought this team was going to be able to do. Showed glimpses of it last year even. This team is more talented. Okay, now can you go on the road and go out there and execute and make the plays to in the fourth quarter go, hey, give yourself a chance to win a game at Oklahoma? That's what I'm looking forward to seeing on Saturday.
Yeah, you mentioned it. We could talk about it this week till we're blue in the face, but it's the old, this has replaced Jarrett Stidham is from Texas, is Jackson Arnold went to Oklahoma and played at Oklahoma last year. But no, I mean, it is an intriguing, it speaks to modern day college football, but it is a really intriguing storyline in this game. He goes back to the place where he started 9 games last year. Really, I mean, this time last year, tomorrow was a year since he was benched against Tennessee, but kind of before that point, it's kind of crazy to look back and think about. He was the next guy at Oklahoma. They just kind of thought, hey, 5-star, replace Dylan Gabriel, get set up and have a lot of success. For a number of reasons that were mostly out of his control last season, it didn't really work out. But before we get into that on the football field, Jason, I think it's been notable, at least for me, going all the way back to the early parts of the offseason, the clear respect on both sides. It's one thing to have coach speak, and everybody's going to do that. You can tell Brent Venables almost carries a bit of frustration for Jackson.
I agree.
Saying the things that he has about, he said this week, the only regret I have is that we didn't have a healthier football team around him. And so, look, that's a guy he recruited. That's a guy he wanted to be his QB1. Just didn't work out. And, you can really tell that a guy like Venables wants Jackson Arnold to be a great quarterback at Auburn, just not on Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think you see, and here, when you handle things the correct way, then I think you see the respect on both sides. I think both sides handle this one. You're like, hey, I want to make a fresh start. Okay, we kind of do too. And so I think both sides, they went, okay, let's make a fresh start. Let's move forward. They were able to get a really good quarterback in John Mateer. And honestly, I was thinking about that a little bit today, Nathan. I think one of the keys for teams and programs moving forward with quarterbacks may be to hire the quarterback-OC combination. It's worked really well in some key situations, and this is one where you look at it and go, you don't have to worry about figuring that out because those guys already know each other so well. So, but yeah, no. Here's the thing: we've gotten to know Jackson Arnold already. The one thing hey, Saturday that guy's going to compete. He's going to get down there. He is going to compete his tail off. But he's also a guy that does it in the right way during the week. He's not going to say anything. We talked to him Saturday after the game. He's like, hey, just looking forward to going back. So, yeah, this hasn't been hey, let's take shots at my former team or my former player week. And I'm glad to see it.
And I also think you get a lot of nowadays, just taboo. You avoid talking about it. Or almost you won't put the name of the former program in your quotes.
That's school up north or whatever.
Right, exactly. Oh, that school I used to be. That's none of that is happening right now with Jackson Arnold. And to your point there, I think it also is a good thing that you and I talked about this after the Baylor game. Jackson Arnold had all these opportunities to show off in his return to Texas in week 1 and try to be really flashy in this offense. He didn't do that. He just went in and did what was needed to win. And so I think for this game, that's really important that he has that kind of mindset. Because look, it's going to be unavoidable for him to be feeling what he's going to feel on Saturday. It's going to be a lot of emotions, good, bad, what have you. I think we've sort of learned that he's the kind of guy who, once game time gets there, he's just going to do what's needed to do to win the game. And that's what Hugh Freeze talked about this week. And it's going to be really big in this game as we kind of get into him on the football field. That decision-making, no turnovers so far, really putting Auburn in a good position to succeed, both running the ball and throwing the football. Going to be massive because Oklahoma's defense is way, way better than anything Auburn has seen so far, we think.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think you mentioned something. It's been maybe the key for me the first 3 games of the season because people have said, hey, where's the deep ball? Where's the deep passing game? And teams have had basically said, now South Alabama probably gave them some last week, but they also got to a point where they're like, look, we got enough points to win this game. Let's just finish the game. So Auburn ran the football. I think patience has been it's been kind of my buzzword for really the first 3 games of this season. But I also think it's part growth too. And that's growth from a coaching staff as well. Because Hugh Freeze admitted, he's like, look, 10 years ago, there's no way I'm calling a game like that. Like they would have taken those shots, even though you go, maybe that's not the right idea or the right time for it. Even last year, you saw some of that going, look, hey, probably could have run some games out a little bit more. So, the funny thing for me has been how many fans have said, why aren't they throwing it deep? Why aren't they throwing it deep? And most of the fans last year were going, why aren't they running the football? Why aren't they running the football? So they're doing exactly what people wanted them to do last year, but now people are like, why don't you do the other thing? Hey, the most important thing is winning the football game. And so I think that patience is going to be vital because you're right. Going back to Oklahoma, you start going, okay, man, I really want to show these people. I really want to show these people. And honestly, I know he's not on social media, but you have to hear it when people are going, well, yeah, they can't throw the football. He can't do this. We've seen him. We know he can throw the football. This depends on how Oklahoma wants to play Auburn this weekend. If they say, hey, we're going to pressure you and we're going to come out and we're going to play man across the board, a lot of opportunities, Auburn's going to take some shots down the field, and they will have some of those situations. Can they take advantage of it?
Yeah, and that comes back to what should be a really interesting chess match between Hugh Freeze, who is a great offensive coach, and Brent Venables, who is one of the better defensive coaches still working today. And you can't really deny that Venables, look, he knows what makes Jackson Arnold tick. He saw him in practice for 2 seasons. He was going against that defense, and so it's going to be pretty clear on Saturday. A lot of exotic blitzes, I would expect. That's something Brent Venables does really well. When you look back at them playing Michigan in week 2, I think it was a 63% of Bryce Underwood's dropbacks, and that's not an apples-to-apples situation, but that's a true freshman.
Yep.
And in this situation, Jackson Arnold, you're trying to get him rattled early on in the game. So even more so comes back to what you were saying, needs to make the right decisions. But in the RPO game, just taking what's given to him.
Correct.
Because staying ahead of the chains is going to be so important in this game.
Yeah, running the football, being able to run it, and I think that's the key, because drop back situation is very different than RPO situation. Because RPO, you're like, hey, you still have, if you can stay in 3rd and 4 or less, where you give yourself, hey, maybe 2 plays to get 4 yards, first down, short passing game, all these things are going to be vitally important against Oklahoma, because look, like, they haven't caused a turnover yet, and if you're Auburn, you hope that stays that way for another game. But they're going to be more aggressive, and I think Auburn's defense is going to be the same thing. I think you're going to see, they were against Michigan, they haven't had to do that against Temple and Illinois State. Auburn hasn't had to do that. They did it some against Baylor, and it probably was costly a little bit when they probably blitzed some against them, because Baylor's almost a run and shoot kind of team a little bit. Nothing against Ball State, very little against South Alabama last week. So I think you're going to see maybe both these defenses be more aggressive. And you're right. Can Auburn avoid 3rd and longs? Because 3rd and long situations against anybody are not ideal for moving the chains and doing those things.
Yeah, I mean, that's been a concern for this team. Pass protection has been something that they've harped on and said, look, it's not as good as it needs to be. They took some steps forward. That offensive line group had its most complete game, they thought, against South Alabama. But again, it's nothing compared to the talent and the ability that Oklahoma has on its front line. It's worth noting, though, they will be without R. Mason Thomas, their top pass rusher. They'll be without him in the first half. I think somebody who's going to be really key this week, just almost from a rounding out the offense perspective, if Damari Alston's feeling good and he can give you 8 or 9 carries of really, because I thought that was so key against Baylor, almost having that Jekyll and Hyde situation with him and Jeremiah Cobb. Damari Alston was willing to just kind of bang up the middle, and then Jeremiah Cobb is so explosive. You have both those guys feeling good in this game, and you can really just try to ground and pound it. I think that's going to make a big difference. And Jackson Arnold's legs as well. Tom Green, our buddy at the Oklahoma site, was asking me, what has surprised you about Jackson Arnold this year, having not seen him previously. We knew he could run, but it's just, I guess it has not been necessarily a surprise to me, but more so a pleasant surprise that it has been the basis for this offense, and it has been so successful. We've seen it, the kind of the through line in 3 games now. When Auburn's offense is at its best, Jackson Arnold's running the football, and I think he needs to do that in a big way on Saturday.
Yeah, it's honestly, it really gives me a guy that I watched a bunch. It gives me a Bo Nix feel a little bit. Because I think when Bo was at Auburn, we envisioned him being used in this way, where it was, hey, he's going to run the football out of the passing game, out of the RPOs, and they didn't really do that with him a whole lot. That's what I envisioned, and I've seen some of that out of Jackson Arnold. When I watched him last year, and you watch him, you kind of think it's more of a downhill runner, but he's got really good feet, and so obviously Oklahoma knows that. That's one of the hidden parts of this game Saturday is quarterback run on both sides, and going, hey, which defense does a better job of containing the other quarterback running the football? Obviously, you think about Oklahoma going, they could throw it, and they may throw it more than Auburn does and may have more yards than Auburn does. But Baylor threw for 400 yards, only scored 24 points. Sooner or later, the running game for both sides is going to be really important, and which of those fronts can maybe contain that the best is going to be a big deal. Yeah,
we've referenced him a couple of times, but John Mateer, obviously the Washington State transfer for Oklahoma at quarterback. You talked about it on the site today, that matchup of him against Auburn's defensive front, and we heard it from Auburn players this week. A couple of different guys. Robert Woodyard is the one I remember. He said, "Look, they run it's all quarterback. Like, they run everything through the quarterback." Kind of reminds you a little bit of Vanderbilt's offense last season. And you pointed out the Michigan game in week 2.
It's crazy.
Something close to 70% of all of their offensive snaps were either a pass by him or a run by him.
53 out of 74 offensive plays were either a pass or a run by Mateer.
Yeah, and so that speaks to the importance of Auburn's front 7 in this game. Look, the secondary, we'll get into the secondary a little bit later, but obviously that's been something that's come under the microscope. Teams being able to throw on Auburn and Auburn kind of having some leverage issues in the secondary, but all of that becomes a lot easier if number one, John Mateer is a little bit uncomfortable and he's not able to do this running, dynamic part that he's been able to do. But really, it's just about, we said it in week 1 with Baylor, making them one-dimensional. Like, you cannot have him stringing out 5-6 yard gains over and over again, and then throwing on 3rd and 3, leaking out the tight end.
Correct.
You just cannot have them have every aspect of their offense. You got to limit certain things, and I think if we're looking up at the scoreboard on Saturday and John Mateer's rushing total is pretty low, I think that's going to be a really good sign for Auburn.
Yeah, no, and you look, and people, I think, because you remember the ones you don't get. Auburn's given up some 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations, but you look overall, Auburn's 3rd down defense has been pretty good. Because they've kept people in 3rd and 7, 8, 9. And if you do that all day on Saturday against Oklahoma, you're going to be pretty successful as well. You might give up 1 or 2 of them, but your percentages go way up. And it's just like field position percentage as well. Can you keep somebody from getting 3 or 4 first downs before they punt? Because if they do that, you're going to be starting on your own 17-yard line, and driving 83 yards over and over again is not a recipe for success. We saw Auburn do it last week against South Alabama, but it also, when you do that, it limits your time, limits your opportunities. So can you get some 3 and outs? Can you get some of those where you can create some field position? And it starts on first down. I think that's a big deal for this team. Can you limit some of those yardage plays on first down?
Yeah, and going back to the defensive front, it's worth noting, we'll see what the injury report looks like tonight, but Oklahoma has 7 offensive linemen that appeared on the first SEC availability report on Wednesday night. Now, we know Troy Everett, their center, we already knew he was out for the season, but 3 other starters are listed. Now, all those guys could play, but in some shape or fashion, you're dealing with a bit of a beat-up offensive line, which was obviously something that Jackson Arnold dealt with at Oklahoma last season. But even if they're healthy, Oklahoma starts a true freshman at left tackle, and I talked about it this morning. Kieran Crawford has been phenomenal for Auburn this season. He's been one of their best defensive players. He's gotten off to the start that Auburn thought he maybe would be able to do as a pass rusher. I think him and Keldrick Falk coming off the edge is going to be really important for Auburn in this game, because at the end of the day, he's a 5-star. Their left tackle, Sasusi, I believe is how you say his last name. Really good player, but at the end of the day, he is a true freshman. It goes back to those 2 guys. Obviously Xavier Atkins is going to be somebody who's going to try to make some hits at the line of scrimmage. I just think if there are a couple more injury question marks for this offensive line, Auburn thinks their defensive front has been pretty good this season. You've got to go take advantage of that.
Yeah, like I said, can how much does Avaris play? I think that's a question mark. Probably not a whole lot. Somebody asked me in my mailbag, which will be Friday morning, maybe the player of the game. I think Kieran Crawford is a guy for me that could have a big game in this one, because obviously Keldrick Falk is going to get a lot of attention. He's going to be a guy that can pay a lot of attention too. Kieran Crawford has been maybe Auburn's best defensive player in the first 3 games. I mean, he's been everywhere. He's done a lot. So I think Kieran Crawford has got to watch. But we saw Jared Smith a little bit last week. May see a little bit more of him, and especially, again, if you can get in 3rd and medium, 3rd and long situations, and you can put Jared Smith and maybe Darion Smith on the field, and Keldrick Falk and Kieran Crawford, and all of a sudden you're able to maybe keep the quarterback runs available, because of a little bit more speed up front as well, but also rush the passer. So, Amaris is a guy that I would say if they could get 5-6 key snaps out of him Saturday, maybe you feel good about it. But man, I'm anxious to see Kieran Crawford. It feels like a breakout type of moment for a guy like that.
Yeah, 5 tackles for loss for him so far this season, 3 sacks, had the interception last week against South Alabama. Yeah, I mean, if you're able to bring pressure on a guy like Mateer, it's going to make a really big difference. I'll go in here. We're going to get one more tonight and then another one on Friday, the availability report for this game. But Auburn's list a little bit longer than they would have liked. You mentioned Amaris Williams. They've got him listed here as doubtful. Jay Crawford, we talked to Hugh Freeze about him today after practice. Obviously, it's one of your starting cornerbacks in this game. He said he's feeling better as compared to the previous practice. If he's going to travel and give it a go, if he does play in this game, it probably won't be that many snaps. Rayshawn Pleasant obviously would step in there. Rayon Strader we've already seen in a couple games. Then somebody that Hugh Freeze talked about today, he said he's really come on the last couple weeks, is Blake Woodby, the true freshman from obviously the powerhouse in Baltimore that Auburn's been mining a little bit. 12 snaps against South Alabama, a guy who can play nickel, and corner. I mean, obviously, you and Christian know him very well from his recruiting days. Guy who we had him rated pretty highly. I think ESPN has him as like a top 30 player overall. Guy with a lot of talent, a lot of ability. We'll see how much he's on the field. He might be on the field a good bit in this game.
And I think he's fearless. That's one of the things about him. Extremely confident, and I think that's a big deal when you're talking about playing corner and playing defensive back. Is you have to be confident in going out because you're going to give up plays. That's this part of it. I think it was interesting to me that Jay Crawford said, "Hey, I feel better." Because you're still talking about practicing early on Thursday. You're talking about 48 hours or more than 48 hours till kickoff. So that's a long time to see what you can get done between now and then. Because, hey, you can rehab, do more training, do all those things, and then give it a go Saturday morning and see how it feels. But the additions of Rayon Strader and Rayshawn Pleasant may be as important as any when you start thinking about this situation here. Going like, you went and added 2 veteran guys, 2 experienced guys, 2 talented guys that give you more depth. And now one of those guys is probably going to be a starter on Saturday. And then, like you said, Blake Woodby, Donovan Starr's been a guy that I've been impressed with too. The other freshman, I think they've got some options at corner. Then, the thing is that there's a lot of depth in the secondary. I think the corner's been okay. Obviously, I think Rayshawn Pleasant's out there. You'll be good about that one too. The question then starts when you move inside at safety, and how much can you get from Champ Anthony? Maybe as big a question as anything because of his dogged leadership. That feels like it's been missing from this back end of the defense, and he's the guy that brings that.
I think you mentioned it during it was either preseason camp or a practice we were at recently. He's off to the side, on the stationary bike and kind of getting right by himself. And Champ has always been kind of a soft-spoken guy with us, really, really nice guy. When he steps on the field, like everything just changes. Like he takes command of that position. So even if he's got a big old club on his hand in this game, his presence back there might be really helpful. That's something I asked Hugh Freeze about on Wednesday, and he said, look, if it can help Auburn get aligned a little better a couple times, if it can help them have better leverage, obviously that nickel position is in the middle there, and it's been something that's been struggling a little bit for Auburn. Hugh Freeze said today they've tinkered with all their options. Sylvester Smith has obviously been starting there, but we've seen a lot of Kinsley Ledore-Faustin the last few games. I wanted to ask you as well, Jason. I mean, as we'll kind of move on here in just a minute, but we're talking about Blake Woodby. We knew the freshman class last year for Auburn was going to be on the field right away. Have you been surprised with, particularly on defense? I mean, all these dudes are playing, and a lot of them are playing pretty well. DJ Durkin said in the preseason, like, we're going to do all this rotating, and that's always a fun thought experiment. When we get to the season here, it doesn't look like they're going to stop doing it. They're going to play a lot of these young guys.
Not really surprised because we got a chance to see a lot of these guys in action, and you know how good they are. And that's the thing that's always been a key. You want to go out and recruit guys that you feel like, hey, I'm going to get guys that I think are better than the guys I have. I'm not saying they're better than the players on this current team, but they're talented enough to go out and push for playing time right away. And obviously, we mentioned Jared Smith up front. We've seen Darion Smith. We've seen Malik Autry. We've seen Jordan Crawford. Then you look at that, the linebacker group, we've seen a lot more of those couple of freshmen back there. Look at Elijah Melendez and Bryce Diaz. Those guys playing, speed, athleticism. We mentioned the 2 freshman corners back there, and then the 2 freshmen who may be as involved as anybody this week are Eric Winters, who we've seen a good bit out of Enterprise. We saw a lot more out of Anquan Fagans last week from Thompson, and they're different kinds of guys. Eric Winters is old school, kind of Ricky Atwater for the old Broncos fan. He's the big, athletic, physical guy. Anquan Fagans is the playmaker, really smart, cerebral guy that can make plays and do those things. And so I think you look at them, good combination, guys that can do a lot. And so I really like the additions of both those guys in the back end. I think we're going to see a lot more of them come Saturday afternoon.
Yeah, it's going to be important. We've talked so much about Batir, but I do think he's got a lot of good weapons. Deion Burks, the former Purdue transfer guy Auburn was in on, that's somebody he dealt with injuries last year, been kind of waiting for him. Isaiah Satenga is a name that Auburn fans will recognize. He played at Arkansas. He's playing really well for them right now. And then the guy that's interesting to me, Jaron Kinnick, is a converted linebacker who is the nation's leading receiver at the tight end position right now. And so against a team like Auburn that's maybe had some struggles at safety and nickel, going up against a really good tight end is not necessarily a recipe for success. So they'll be definitely keyed in on him in this game. Jason, before we move on, kind of putting a bow on this matchup, I know we've been through a lot of them, but knee-jerk when this game comes to mind, when Saturday afternoon rolls around, what are one or two things that really you feel like Auburn has to succeed in order to give itself a chance to win and then be able to pull out an SEC opening win?
Yeah, I keep coming back to it. My word still continues to be patience. I think patient on offense. Don't try to force the issue a whole lot. Obviously, you don't want to get down by 2 touchdowns against Oklahoma where you feel like you got to change your game plan.
Yeah.
I do think this team is good enough, and people have kind of thrown out defensively. Look, defensively, they gave up 24 to a Baylor team that can throw it all over the place. Fine last week against South Alabama. You look and people are like, man, the secondary really struggled. They gave up 170 yards passing, so it wasn't like they gave up 300 last week. So I think you look at it and go, defense give you opportunities. And then, having Alex McPherson, we haven't mentioned, but I thought this week he looked as strong as we have seen him in probably a couple of years, since the end of that 23 season. If he can still be that guy and give you 45 and in opportunities in field goals, that'd be a really big deal for this team to feel like, hey, maybe you don't have to take some chances down there, take the 3 points. But, yeah, to me it's patience. Don't try to force it against an Oklahoma defense that can take it away from you if you give them some opportunities. And then run the football, stop and run. I always go to that, even against a guy that averages 300 yards passing. For me, because of those first down importance, that's the thing I look at as line of scrimmage.
Yeah, I mean, Free said it this week about Alex McPherson. There, he had a recent treatment that was able to help him keep food down a little bit more. And, yeah, we saw him in practice look really good on Tuesday. That line, Hugh Freeze saying, I'm comfortable with him from this range. It keeps backing up over the next couple weeks. And so, obviously, that's a really good sign. Connor Gibbs, we would believe, to still be their long-distance field goal guy. Yeah, but something I keep going back to is, and you mentioned it there, they only gave up 15 points to South Alabama. South Alabama's scoring average this year and Baylor's scoring average this year are going to be a lot higher than what they scored against Auburn. Why was that the case in those games? You got timely stops, and I think that's something that you look at here against John Mateer, against a really good Oklahoma offense. Is he going to get his in certain situations? Absolutely. Oklahoma's got a lot of really good players. They're the number 11 team in the country for a reason. Hugh Freeze said he thinks they're a playoff caliber team, and Mateer's the biggest reason why. Getting a stop, maybe like South Alabama, it's the end of their first scripted drive, and you hold them to a field goal. That's really big. Baylor, you get 2 separate 4th and goal stops. That's really big. And so you sprinkle those things into, Baylor threw for 419 yards. Yes, that's not good, and you need to improve upon that. But whether it's a turnover, whether it's just holding them to a field goal, if there are 2 or 3 defensive sequences in this game, and we've seen that from DJ Durkin over the last couple of years, this group bends but doesn't break at key times in the game. Even South Alabama, that Jared Smith turnover came at a time where maybe that would have been a 1-score game in the 4th quarter. If you can get some key stops like that, really going to make a huge difference in this one. And then you mentioned the patience and the decision-making. Jackson Arnold just needs to play within himself.
Correct.
He needs to play within the offense, play within himself. Auburn needs to give him opportunities to get confident, make some early throws, some quick throws, get going in the RPO game. I think he's a guy, at least from what we've seen, that almost like, maybe different from some other quarterbacks, he gets some confidence with his legs. Like
I agree.
You see him kind of open up when he gets 5 or 6 yards, when he breaks a tackle or two.
Yeah, he has that brash quarterback quality to him when he's running the football, and you could see a little bit of that come out. He doesn't do it in a taunting way. It's just like, okay, man, he gets excited when he runs the football and makes some plays with his legs, does those things. Yeah, I think you have to have that from Jackson Arnold on Saturday to give you that egg, because that's the guy they can't account for. You ask the defensive coach, you talk to defensive coaches, they're like, look, we can't account for the quarterback running. That's why you look at a guy like John Mateer, DeMarcus Riddick, and Xavier Atkins. Those guys are going to be really important when they have opportunities to spy him, to keep him from getting out and making plays. Because I think I did a thing today. Played in 12 games last year at Washington State, 3 now at Oklahoma. He's played 15 games as a starter. He has at least 1 rushing touchdown in 14 of those 15 games. Wow. That's a quarterback.
That's crazy.
So that's a guy that in the red zone, he becomes the main threat for them running the football. Can you account for that? Can you make those stops when you need to?
That's wild. I mean, I knew he had a lot of touchdowns last year, more than 800 rushing yards and 15 touchdowns. It'll be a big challenge for Auburn's defense. You just mentioned DeMarcus Riddick. That's somebody we haven't had to see a bunch of. It hasn't stylistically fit the teams that they're playing. His skill set, he's going to be a guy in this game that's going to be really important, kind of that athletic. Remember, it was Oklahoma last year, kind of his breakout game against Michael Hawkins, the backup for them, tracking him down in space. Different kind of quarterback, but should be interesting to see how Auburn plays them. It'll be a really interesting chess match on both sides of the ball. Auburn and Oklahoma in the SEC opener, 2:30. Me and Jason will be there in Norman. And Jason, before we get rolling here and get headed out, just kind of look at the slate of other games in college football. Not the most, top 10 heavy. Auburn Oklahoma is one of the best games of the weekend.
Yep.
Not the most ranked heavy weekend, but still lots of interesting matchups. Our game of the week and our forecasters over at our site was Texas Tech and Utah. It's a really, really interesting matchup. Texas Tech spent a bunch of money, and Utah has a new quarterback, and obviously we know Kyle Whittingham is a really successful coach. That's going to be a really interesting game. That's a morning kickoff.
I mentioned earlier, OC quarterback combination. That's what Utah did. Went out and got Napier, OC from New Mexico State. To me, when I look at those, I love that combination of quarterback coming with OC, Utah playing at home. I like that. I pick Utah to win. I think, Texas Tech, we've seen them have these opportunities, and can they come through? Man, I like Utah to bounce back from their last season struggles. So I think it's going to be a fun game. Wish we could see a little bit more of that when it's early on, but should be a good one.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you looked at Zampier, and we saw him last year when he came to Auburn. It's like, ooh, that guy's exciting. I wonder who's going to pick him up in the portal. Ends up being Utah, ends up being their OC. Utah was top 15 in the country in returning production on offense as well. So it's like you kind of mold all those things together. Now, Texas Tech's got a lot of talent. Our guys, Lee Hunter and Romello Height, are over there on the defense for them, and they've got a really good pass rush as well. So interesting to watch that one. This would be Nebraska's biggest win in
years.
How many years?
Yeah.
You and I were talking about the other day. It would kind of be exciting to see them become a good team again. Really big spot for Matt Rule in year 3.
Yep, you get Michigan at home. I mean, I think that's a very winnable game when you start talking about Nebraska. Can you do that against Michigan? I picked Nebraska when those all things equal. I usually go with the home team a little bit, and that's a hungry place right now. And so that'll be, hey, you win this one, we're back kind of moment for Nebraska. Even though I don't think Michigan's that great, it's going to be a big one in terms of, if nothing else, than perception if Nebraska can win it.
The one SEC on SEC game besides Auburn, Oklahoma that should deserve a lot of attention, Missouri hosting South Carolina. Missouri's a pretty healthy favorite in that one. South Carolina didn't look very good. I haven't seen about Lenore Sellers. I haven't looked into it.
I think he is maybe available.
Yeah. Regardless, we think Missouri is going to be a lot better, but it'll be interesting to see if South Carolina can bounce back. There are 3 upset spots that the SEC is going to try to avoid. Arkansas is going to Memphis after the letdown. They had an opportunity against Ole Miss. Speaking of Ole Miss, they're hosting Tulane. Yep. That's a really good G5 team. And then can Florida make it a game on the road against Miami? I feel like one of those 3 SEC games is going to be too close for comfort.
Yeah, I think Florida plays Miami pretty close. And I think Miami wins. The thing is that can Florida find any rhythm offensively? And for me, it would come by running the football a bunch, because you don't want to drop back and throw it a bunch against that Miami front, because they'll get after you. Reuben Bain, a guy we know really well, is really good off the edge. Arkansas going to Memphis is just one that I look at and go, man, Memphis has been pretty good. We saw it last week. I mean, South Alabama was a solid team, but it's going to be a Super Bowl type feel. Well, it's the same thing Arkansas is going to run into this week, but they're coming off of a really emotional game at Ole Miss. It's hard to bounce back. 11 a.m. kickoff at Memphis. They'll be fine. I don't know if Arkansas will. If they can survive the first half of that, I think they'll be okay. But, man, I think Memphis is going to be ready to go early.
That Memphis team went on the road at Troy last week. Now, Troy, we'll see how good they are under Jared Parker, but they obviously went toe-to-toe with Clemson for a long time. They beat that Troy team by 3 touchdowns on the road. So this is quality Memphis squad. I think that'll wrap us up for tonight, Jason. Fun first show here at AU Club. Before we get going, as we do at the end of every show here, talk a little bit about Auburn University Club. They've been our sponsors now on this Thursday Night Live for 2 years now, and what people can expect here.
Absolutely. First of all, got a big crowd here tonight enjoying some incredible food. So if you haven't had a chance to come out here and eat, and know some folks that come out here, come out and enjoy this great food here tonight. And so, but yeah, just golf course is in fantastic shape. This is a golfer's club right here. And so this is a place to come out, enjoy it. So come talk to Jimmy Green, talk to the folks here at AU Club, and let them kind of show you around. If you live outside the area, they have some memberships available for folks that live outside of the Auburn area. So maybe come talk to them about that if you come into town for football games, basketball games, baseball games, and want to say, hey, I'd like to have a place to come play golf. So come check out AU Club and Let them show you around, take care of you.
Tell them Jason Caldwell sent you.
That's right, absolutely.
And maybe they'll help you out a little bit. Yeah, some of the best wings in town. That's every time you talk about the food, I always think about the wings. So thank you again to AU Club. Really enjoyed this show. First Thursday Night Live of the week, Auburn and Oklahoma. We will be in Norman. Really looking forward to that. First trip to the new SEC school for both of us, and so really looking forward to it. Keep it locked at auburnundercover.com. We'll have you guys covered throughout the game and into Sunday. And until then, until me and Jason talk to you on the post-game pod, we will catch all of you guys later.